Is your identity matching the life that you want right now? That's the major question to ask. Because we can sit here and complain about the situation and we can fucking do something about it and put a smile on our faces and do something about it. All too often we just sit here and complain. I mean, it's it's just fun. It's fun to complain and to be nihilistic. It is entertaining as hell to watch other people do it as well. So, we get into this loop of constantly complaining and entertaining ourselves and entertaining others and just being in the shit show of life because constantly we are bombarded by a bunch of doom and gloom and a bunch of nonsense on the regular. But, it's funny. We can laugh about it, but it's cool. But at the same time, we got to get to work, man. What happened to getting to work? What happened to just making shit happen? Are we forgetting about the whole goal at hand? Because you got to understand the life that we live now is all about the result, the resilience to stress, as I mispronounced the word, but the resilience to stress and the endurance, the mental and emotional endurance that we must have in order to drop the hammer in this so-called spiritual plane that we live on right now and have fun doing it. We should have fun being mentally, spiritually, and emotionally resilient and having the endurance in all three of those areas as well as physical, because don't forget, when you practice physical endurance, whether it be running, yoga, cardio, whatever, you're increasing your resilience in the emotional, mental, and spiritual areas as well because they're all connected. And we forget, like, sometimes we forget that within the hustle and bustle of everyday life. So I would say, what is the identity that you're embodying when it comes to that type of shit? Like when it comes to, are you the type of person who has emotional resilience? Or do you just start to complain and get into this entertainment thought loop of complaining? Because complaining is a skill. Don't get me wrong. Some people are very skilled at complaining. They make it sound very attractive. And I'm one of those people. I've done it before. I picked it up from various people that I've known throughout my life, maybe even people that I've seen on television as a kid. But it really gets you nowhere unless you apply it to something that you got to have an objective in life. That's what I'm saying. And if it doesn't match the objective that you set out to have, you are wasting your time. And this is the reason why so many people sabotage themselves before they ever reach the destination of their choosing, because they don't, I mean, that identity that they're holding in their minds of somebody who's just going to bitch and complain, for lack of a better term, it doesn't align with what they truly want. And this is why sometimes you got to shut up and meditate, to say it quite frankly. You got to turn everything off, turn the social media off, turn the TV, the radio, the music, turn it off for once and sit in silence. Listen to some ambient music for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, even 15 minutes, and go completely blank. And then ask yourself what you truly want in this life. Because we have been inundated and programmed with what we think we want. We might think we want Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Rolex watches, but in actuality, we all we want is to live in a remote location with a small garden and a couple of animals and some chickens and a tropical remote area with dirt roads. You know what I'm saying? And a Jeep or a motorbike or something. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe that's what you truly want. Maybe it isn't. Maybe you want to live in more of a city. Maybe you want to have access to more um, things that are going on. Maybe you want to be in the hustle and bustle of things. It just depends on what you truly want. You can have what you want as long as you identify what it is that you want. Um, I mean, it sounds so simple. It sounds like way too simple. But why does everybody not reach that goal? Is it because they are constantly being irritated by the obstacles that pop up, and they don't realize how much of their energy is being drained when they're constantly allowing themselves to be irritated and annoyed? I mean, it's justifiable in a lot of scenarios, but think about it. Every reaction is an overreaction. There's a major difference between a response and a reaction. A reaction is like something you get from poison ivy. You touch poison ivy, the rash that you get is a reaction. You know, the response would be more like you putting on some aloe vera or going into the ocean with the salt water. That's a response. And when you go into the ocean with the salt water, it dries up the poison ivy. So we need to respond more in life instead of reacting. Reacting is more of a habitual thing. It's a habit that we do over and over again. So when we're getting irritated over anything, it is a habit, a reaction that we do with almost without thinking. It's a knee-jerk reaction. That's where the term that's why that term is so fitting. Knee-jerk reaction, when the doctor taps on your knee with that rubber hammer and he's looking for your reflexes, your reaction towards that stimulus and response. Responding is more akin to the word responsibility. It's your ability to respond to a certain situation. Just like, deciding to go into the ocean with the salt water to dry out the poison ivy, how else are we going to respond in this life to any kind of interruptions and disturbances that happen throughout the day? Because they're inevitable. It's going to happen. And the one thing you got to ponder on as well is, what if your habits are training you to be the opposite of what you truly want to be? Human beings are made up of habits. We do things habitually every single day. Some habits we may have are good. A lot of habits that we have are not so good, and they don't contribute to where we want to be in life. And you got to ask yourself this, because your habits stack up. So if you're doing a bad habit every single day, let's just take the habit of reacting in a negative way towards anything. Say you get flustered easy and you lash out. That is a terrible habit, because doing this on a daily basis over and over and over again adds up to years of your life wasted. And then when you account for the energy that you waste on those reactions, those irritating reactions that you have, you're seeing compound interest happen now, because we don't notice how much these things add up. It's just like when you have if you invest in a stock, like let's say you put money in Verizon, right? You buy like $1,000 worth of Verizon. 5-10 years later, you look at all the compound interest that accumulated, and it's actually quite surprising. The dividend payout is every quarter, and that just and especially if you roll it into, you have some sort of dividend reinvestment going on, then your reinvestment is going to earn dividends as well, and it just keeps growing and growing. And you look at it and you're like, wow, this thing just made money on its own. The same principle applies to a negative habit. So you can add money to a stock or an ETF, or you can add negative habits to your life that compound over and over again. You just don't notice it until you look back and say, damn, I wasted a lot of time and energy on that. And sometimes maturity comes late in life and you realize how much time and energy you wasted on some of your negative reactions to normal things that happen in life. You got to understand when people, the certain type of people who have that resolve and are able to withstand disturbance at a high level, they got to where they deserve to be. And people that can't handle even minor disturbances, a fraction of what other people said successful people can do, they are really stunting their growth. So if you allow your discipline to get weak, the cravings get louder. As in anything, like you may be using substances as a bad habit or a food addiction as a bad habit. Those vices get louder and louder the more you ignore your discipline. Like if you don't exercise your discipline muscle, those cravings will scream at you. It'll almost be irresistible. You can't help it. And another thing, when people self sabotage, it has a lot to do with what's called the Pygmalion effect and the Gollum effect. The Gollum effect is when the people in your surroundings bring you down. So the people in your surroundings that let's use the example. Let's use a common example because poor food choices, poor food options are ubiquitous. They're in the grocery store everywhere. So people, let's say you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to get fit and get healthy, but all your friends don't do any of that. They eat fast food and they eat, junk food. Some of those friends may have become very skilled at normalizing the habit of eating poor quality foods. And so spending enough time around these people, you're eventually going to succumb to the activities of the group. The group think becomes stronger and stronger the less your discipline is, but the more time you spend around those people, the weaker your discipline is going to be. It's almost like a catch 22 because there's so many things working against you in that situation. First, your community, your group of people is, and this is the Gollum effect, by the way, they are, constantly eating this way in front of you. So it's tempting in that degree. And then you have the peer pressure. You also have these foods readily available to you all over the place. And then there are comfort foods. So when you're feeling stressed, you reach for these foods more often. And so with all these things pounding on you, you're going to be beat into submission. The opposite works true for what's called the Pygmalion effect, to where you rise to the standards and expectations and values of the people around you who are at a higher level, who are, let's say, they're taking time out to meal prep. It's a non-negotiable for them. They are eating healthy. They are exercising. They're researching. They are, actively doing a bunch of things to level up. And if you spend more time around those people, and this applies to the younger you are, this applies to you more because you're more impressionable when you have a younger mind. But it applies to adults too, older folks. You will benefit from being around a group that is leveling up. It's just the way it works. This is how human beings are. Also, let's say you're trying to be the influence. You take it upon yourself. No, my identity is not somebody who, gives into this type of food, and I'm going out for walks and I'm exercising and I'm running, and I want to influence the people around me to do better as well. You have to have a stronger discipline in that situation because you know that they're going to do the normal thing that they always do. And it's not really a knock on them, but you have to keep in mind that you have to come at it from a place of love, because you understand that when you do well and they do well, the better everybody else will do. You don't want to look at it like you don't want to have animosity towards them for their poor decisions or eating habits. But you want to approach it from a point of view of love and care for the greater good of the whole group. And that is really the only chance to make a change. First, you be the change you want to see, and then with the love and empathy applying to that situation, you can influence and inspire and motivate others to do the same.